So getting ready to tear the top of the engine apart, see if I can find out what caused that leak. What I've done so far is simply removed the throttle cable, which really wasn't all the way attached. It was only in this bracket here. I had to squeeze the tabs and pull it back. And then I took the spark plug wires loose, both at the distributor and off of the spark plugs. And now, because these are in a wire loom, I'm just going to take the hold down bolts for the valve cover off and try to take that wire loom out and without disconnecting the wires from the loom. This, if you remember, was the hold down that I had to modify because I couldn't get it to turn past the brake booster. The T on it was too long, so I trimmed it down a little bit on both ends. Okay, let's see if we can get the wire loom out. Before I lose them, I've got the little pieces that spread the clamping action down across the valve cover. Get those out of there. But you know what? They wouldn't have fallen down because I kind of forgot. I put the studs into the heads, and these are unbolting from the studs. So I'm going to try to pull that up here. I had to reroute a couple of the wires because I had them tangled around other stuff, which I don't like to do if you've been following me. Take this off here somewhere to make it easier. And there's one thing I discovered. I think this was from the old air conditioner, and it was just cut off. It was a vacuum line to operate their doors, and these are driven by electric servos, and it's caught under my valve cover. I don't know how that happened, because I thought I had the valve covers on. Oh, you know what? I took it off because I couldn't get the alternator belt on. That's what it was. So at any rate, once I get all this stuff off, I should be able to take all those spark plug wires as one assembly and take them off. I don't know my own strength when I'm tightening these things. The only reason I'm loosening this right now is to get that vacuum line out from under the valve cover. I have reusable valve cover gaskets here. I hope I didn't ruin them by clamping that under it. It's rubber, so it should compress maybe easier than a valve cover gasket, but we'll see. So It's just a loose, I have to get a plug somehow there. So this entire side is loose. I'm going to go over and do the same on the other side. Actually, I may not take the upper valve cover hold downs off yet because they're not holding the wire loom. So take this. I need to start taking some of these pieces and putting them on the bench rather than just leaving them lay on the edge of the fender. Don't want to be dropping them, but I'll start whenever I get the spark plug loom off, the spark plug wire loom. Surprisingly, some of those spark plug wires were a little bit difficult to remove from the plugs, and particularly the coil here. And a couple, well, I only had to use a little persuasion on the one on the coil and a couple on the distributor. So now the wire loom is off. I'll show you what I did to help get the ones off of that coil and the distributor cap. I just took a little pick and very gently I went under the edge of the boot and moved it around just a little bit, and then it came off easily. So I'm going to take that off and put it on the bench and remove all these pieces I've taken off, the hold downs and such. Get them out of the way. I was going to take off the distributor next, but I realized my distributor wrench is up at the house. I know exactly where it is, but I might be able to get this with a 3/8 socket if I remove the sniper first. And I can't get down there with that, dang it. So, I thought I was going to be able to reach that with a 1/2-inch deep socket, but it doesn't look like that's going to work. Might be able to do a 1/2-inch deep and a 1/4-inch ratchet, because maybe the sockets are a bit thinner. We'll try that. The two that are on the front, I know they have to be done by a wrench. You can't get to them. So this one's okay here. And nope, that fuel rail, that's what that is, prevents me from getting in there. So I'm going to have to take 3 of them off manually, and until I get it loose enough to turn by my fingers. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this off. I already loosened it with an 11/16. The fuel line has to be removed anyway. So maybe I can reach in there and get that. I can get it. And I'm going to have to disconnect the few wires that are already connected on the sniper. I have the one to the oxygen sensor connected, but the oxygen sensor is not connected to the exhaust. So that one, okay, that fell in there, and it's going to be a convenient thing to have one of these magnetic pickup tools, because it's easy to drop the nuts in these places. And you know what, that one I intentionally dropped it where I knew I could get it with the magnetic tool, so that I didn't have to worry about dropping it somewhere where it'd be harder to get. Hope I don't get in the way too much from over here, but there's two more bolts got to get out. Can't turn that because the wrench is hitting the bracket here that the bolt holds on. How did I do that when I tightened it? Because I know I did it. Stubby wrench maybe? That bracket's got to be tight enough so that when you hook the throttle cable up to it, it can actually pull on the throttle, not just wiggle. So I'm gonna, there's a couple vacuum lines on here, and I'm going to keep those connected. I disconnected the brake booster cable at the brake booster because that was just a slip off, rather than having to unscrew the thing there. Now I left that nut in there. I'm gonna have to come and get it with a magnetic pickup tool. I guess that from here I can tell it's the body of the sniper system that was interfering with the wrench, not the fuel rail. So I guess they didn't have the option of putting the fuel rail out further to give you more clearance. And there may be a good reason why they couldn't make the throttle body smaller. Go figure out the wires to the sniper that need to disconnect. I've cleaned off my workbench, left myself clean places to put down parts as I take them off. I guess the good thing here is if I drop any parts into the engine, I'll be able to get them off because I'm going to have it open enough. I'm not sure that's good, but it is what it is. I'm going to go get the magnetic pickup tool, get that last nut, disconnect some of the wiring. Some of it's not connected yet. Okay. Let's check everything that's... There's one that goes down to the temperature sensor. That is connected. There's one that goes to the handheld controller. That is not connected. This one goes to a multi-wire connector. Disconnected now. This one goes to another multi-wire connector. That's disconnected. Other than disconnecting the temperature sensor, I gotta see how that's latched on there because I don't want to break it. That's disconnected. Let's see if we can get the nut out of here. Nut's out of there. I think it should lift off now. It was harder than I thought it would be. Let's lay this over on the bench. Put the nuts back on. I'll put the bracket back on even though the sniper's not there. And I guess because I've already started to put these nuts on, I'm going to leave that gasket in its place. I've already disconnected that vacuum line. Now I guess I'm going to have to see if I can find the tool that will work to remove that distributor hold down bolt. I'll be back once I find a tool that works. And 9/16 offset wrench got me in there and got it loosened. Don't have it off yet. I do have to disconnect a wire that's attached to the distributor from the whole sniper system. I just let you see what I did. Went in from this angle without the sniper system on there. It was pretty easy to reach. Saved myself a walk up to the house. So now that it's loose, I can just take it off. There's a wire that goes into the distributor that is right above this nut that I have to take off, so it makes it a little bit tight. Actually, it's a bolt. I thought it was a stud with a nut on the top. So there's the hole down. And if there's a wire there, that's got to be connected to something, I would think. Oh, no, it's this cable here that I already unplugged. And then all you do is pull up the distributor, making sure you don't lose the gasket. And that's off. What I'm going to do, oops, it's plugged in somewhere again. I have to unplug that, which is going to be a little tricky with holding the distributor as well. Not that bad. Okay, I am going to put a plastic Ziploc bag around that distributor gear so that it doesn't get dirty or damaged. And I'll be back to take off the intake manifold. Okay, I'm going to put the distributor hold down bracket back in, and I am going to take out as many of the bolts from the intake manifold as I can reach with the electric ratchet to make it quicker. So first thing, put that hold down back so it doesn't get lost. And I'll probably have to take, I know I have to take it off, but I'll probably have to take it off in order to get to a couple of these bolts. And there are washers with them. I don't think they go any particular place, so I can just take these off as I can, as I can reach them. I'm not going to get that in there. I'll get that with an extension. The other two in there, that's going to be a manual operation. Okay, the two in here I'm going to have to get in with a wrench, and they are going to be small turns. So I'm going to shut the video off for that. And I guess I'll pick the other ones I can get with the power ratchet while I have it in my hand. Those I might be able to get with a manual ratchet. This one I'm going to need a longer extension. But I think I can get that with the power ratchet with a longer extension. I'll go get that and we'll see what happens. While I'm over at the tool chest, I grab me a 9/16 wrench. I think I need open end. Oh, that won't, the power ratchet won't go in there. I'll go get the manual ratchet and see if that works. Gonna try to get these last 4 with a swivel on a ratchet. I don't know if I can, but it's worth a shot. Yep, got it started anyway. I wouldn't want to do that with a power ratchet, even with the swivel, because you don't want to get too bold with it. This would be probably the harder of the two sides. The other side, or no, I'm sorry, this is the easier of the two sides. Darn it. don't think I have a 9/16 socket with a 1/4" drive, because that would work, I think. It's tight to even get your fingers in there to turn it once you've got it broken loose. Okay, that's out. Two more in one hose, heater hose, and that will be ready to come off. I think maybe before I take the heater hose off, I'm going to try to see, I can't even get this one on it. That's how tight the quarters are. No. So that one is going to be the slow way with a open end wrench and probably flipping it side to side until I get it loose enough to actually turn it. I'm going to shut off the video while I do that, because I'm having trouble locating my 9/16 wrench. I think I might have seen it. No, that's a half. There it is. Took it over the other side of the car with me. So, the first one was easier than I remembered it going in, so that's a good thing. And then I'll need, I believe, a 5/16. No, that's a metric. That's one of those metric hose clamps. I think it's a 7 or an 8. Just going to break this loose and then shut off the camera, because it's going to take me a while to take these out bit by bit. Okay, those two are out. The next thing is I have to disconnect that heater hose. But before I do that, I need to do a little experiment, because I need to see if I can get this valve cover off. Jeez. That darn transmission dipstick is a pain in the butt. I want to see if I can get this valve cover off without moving that heater hose, because the air conditioner is running into it. Why in the heck? Now this is kind of my own fault here, because I put these fancy valve cover hold downs, but it's not the only thing that this was in the way of. Okay, and that one was being a little tougher maybe too, because the stud came out of the head. Probably had to wind it a little bit further. And that one, that's pretty high. Even though I didn't have to take even though the stud didn't come off there. Now there's one more thing I have to do. I have to loosen the air conditioner bracket, because that is in the way of the valve cover. Now, it's a 9/16, so I already have the wrench over here. Okay, so get that up as far as it'll go. Take these guys off, the hold guns. Let's see if we can get this past that heater hose. Yep. I was a little concerned about that. Just put this out of the way temporarily while I loosen the hose clamp. Since I have to take this off, since I discovered after I put this one on that you can reverse that hose clamp, and what I'll do is I'll position it so that you can tighten it from here. Yeah, I'm going to reverse that right now while I'm thinking about it. I didn't know you could do that until after I put it on. Shut off the camera and do that off camera. Okay, everything's disconnected. Time to try and yank that off of there. It's probably going to need pried off a little bit, because there's RTV on the gaskets. And I think prying it rather than yanking it, prying it gently rather than yanking it and having it come off all of a sudden is probably a better plan. I'm going to go under the metal, the block. This is where the cork gasket is you know what, there's another way that maybe I can approach this. Take a dead blow hammer and smack it. Just to break the seal. I've got into the cork gasket with a screwdriver. Pop it loose. Take this over to the bench and take a look at it. Better shut the camera off while I'm looking at it. It looks like the two front ports where the water jacket goes through, not the intake or exhaust, have some coolant residue on them. It may have been leaking there. So there was some coolant down in the lifter valley. Which means that it's probably done in the crankcase. So I am going to have to change all the oil. The question I have though is, do I really have a leak at the head gasket? Because if I don't, then I would be doing work I don't need to do. It actually, Okay, yeah, that is a coolant passage, not an intake port. The other thing I found down in the lifter valley is this, and I don't even recognize it. I don't know what it is. It's possibly a, I don't know, piece of packing from something? I don't know. I'm going to have to think about this and plan whether or not to take that head off, because like I said, on both sides of the intake, the intake manifold, that port on the left, that's a coolant passage. And that may be the whole issue. I just want to think about that for a while and decide how to proceed from here. So the question is, could antifreeze have leaked that at that coolant passage and run down the side of the head without me seeing it or feeling it? And I think the answer to that is possibly. When I say possibly, I don't know if you can see it, but right here, there appears to be a gap that when it was leaking out right here, it could run down in between the block and the head. The question is, do I do a lot more work that's maybe unnecessary, or do I just replace the intake manifold gaskets and put RTV across the dam here, which, by the way, I was expecting an oil leak and having to do this anyways, because as I reviewed the video, I think I forgot to put RTV right at the joints in the back. I'm trying to find my little pick that I was using before to take the spark plugs off, because I think I can gauge how deep that gap is if I can get that pick. So, see right there, goes in a bit. What I'm going to try to do is to get a piece of paper towel, put it in there and see if I can see if that's wet with antifreeze. As we get further down here, that seems like that gap got deeper, but I'm not getting any antifreeze on the paper towel. But I'm pretty well convinced that pretty well convinced that antifreeze could have slowly dripped along this gap and run down there in that gap. Wish I could have figured that part of it out while I still had fluid in the radiator. See, I'm even getting under where I was seeing it leak from the other day, and that's all dry. That's not wet at all. So, I have a decision to make here. And I think now that I see the path it could have taken, and the amount it was dripping could have come down that channel. So, the question is, what do I do? What to do, what to do? So I've got paper towels stuffed into the intake ports and the water ports, and I'm going to try to catch what residue I can with another paper towel. And it's going to take a bit of work, but I'm going to have to scrape all this off. I will also end up using a shop vac to get any pieces that I didn't catch. But this is going to be a long process. I'll try to get it as clean as I can. Without getting any into the engine. The parts that were leaking, I think, they're coming off easy. Parts that weren't leaking are a little more difficult. So I'm going to be doing that probably for hours. Right now, I guess I'd say I'm leaning toward just replacing the intake manifold gasket and leaving the heads gaskets alone. Since I found a leak in a probable path for it to get to where I was seeing it drip. So I think that's all the problem was, but it's going to be a gamble if I go that route, gambling that was it. And if there were two problems, then I guess I'll pay the penalty in terms of money for another intake manifold gasket and the labor time to do the job again.